All right, thank y'all very much. Welcome to Eastern State Prison Historical Site. On behalf of our president, Sally Elk, and our board of directors, as well as the beautiful staff of Eastern State Prison Historical Site, Sean and Brad, I see you back there. We would like to welcome all of y'all to Eastern State Prison Historical Site. My name is Jerome Loach, and I am a formerly incarcerated captive prisoner, and I use my terms selectively. The organization has practiced second chance hiring here for the last, since 2016. And on behalf of that, I was given the opportunity to be able to come here and work as a supervisor for education and partnership. And I'll go into that more deeply when I sit down and explain exactly who I am. But before I do that, I would like to thank my brother, Senator Sharif Street, as well as my sister, Ms. Bullock. I don't see her here. I don't know if she left already. And I'd also like to thank our brother, Rab, that was just here, as well as all the brothers and sisters that was just up here speaking. I would like to seriously thank everybody. Those some warm, heartfelt stories that I heard. And on the behalf of all the soldiers that was formerly incarcerated, I would like to welcome y'all here as well. And these are the brothers that I see that I have been in the trenches. And I see some faces that I was in the trenches with. I'm talking about isolated confinement. Brother Minister Joshua. We got my brothers. Matter of fact, all the brothers who are formerly incarcerated, if you don't mind, can y'all please stand up and let the brothers and sisters see y'all, for who y'all are. Thank y'all. And on that note, I'd like to turn it back over to Maria to start the program.
Thank you so much, everybody, for being here, and for our families and online audience who are now with us. We are live streaming this as of a minute ago. I'm sorry to our online folks that we are starting late. It rained today, and it threw off our plans a little bit. So thank you for being patient. I'm glad that you're with us. We are joined today by a phenomenal lineup of individuals here who you're going to be hearing about. This is The Road to Redemption, live at Eastern State Penitentiary. We are here celebrating Second Chances Month, specifically second chances for people who have served extreme sentences in Pennsylvania. And we know Pennsylvania is really good at extreme sentences. We've been doing it a long time. Hasn't helped, hasn't changed anything in 40 years, not making anybody safer, $2.6 billion DOC budget every year. So we are here today to highlight these individuals, to highlight legislation from Senator Sharif Street, who has SB 835, SB 135. This is a lifer's parole bill, medical release, geriatric release, desperately needed. And we thank him and all the lawmakers who are here today. So I'm going to turn it over to Senator Street, who will turn it over to Secretary Trusty, and then we'll get started with our panel.
One, thank you to everyone joining us online, and I apologize to everyone who's in person who's going to hear anything about these bills for a second time. But I will be, I'll be a little bit briefer than I was before. Look, it is incredibly important that folks begin to talk about, and we enhance the discussion around second chances for people who are a long time incarcerated. It is popular to talk about helping, about folks who have minimal sentences and how they come home and creating second chances for them. But the reality is we need to have a serious conversation about people who are a long time incarcerated. Senate Bill 835, Senate Bill 135. These bills create medical parole and create parole opportunities for folks who are doing life in prison, respectively. Very simple. 835 says that folks who are over 55 years old and have served over 25 years, or 50% of their sentence, have an opportunity to go before the Board of Probation and Parole to be released. It doesn't mean they have to be released, but it gives them an opportunity to have their status reviewed and to come home and to make the case that they deserve a chance to be a part of society. Senate Bill 135 allows for folks who are serving first-degree murder to come home after 35 years of incarceral time and over the age of 65, and folks who are for second-degree murder who have served over 25 years over the age of 55. I think that those years are too long. I always say it myself, but the reality is that that is a reasonable place to move for the Pennsylvania General Assembly to pass this legislation. Unfortunately, legislation, as was discussed, isn't really moving the way we'd like. So the commutations process that Secretary Trusty helps oversee is the only option. Board of Pardons is understaffed and overworked and requires a unanimous vote. It simply does not have the capacity to vet all of the people who really deserve an opportunity for commutation. The reason for the program today is that we often focus on what people aren't doing. We say, well, maybe they aren't going to commit a crime again. And it's not merely that the folks here are all just not recidivating. Some of them are, in fact, all of these folks are, in fact, contributing to society in some incredible ways, diverse ways. And all of their talents would have been wasted had they still been sitting in jail. And that creates the moral imperative for why they should be home. But it also creates the economic imperative. Bobby's got Brother Harris, he's got a business employing other folks. Folks are formerly incarcerated people. But all of those folks are now paying into society as opposed to taking out from society because they were incarcerated. When folks reach the status of geriatric, it can cost the Commonwealth over $100,000 a year per person per year served. And even for inmates who aren't old and sick, it can cost it averages $42,000 an inmate. It's an absolute waste of money for people who, as a population, are statistically less likely to commit a crime than if you randomly selected a person from the public at large. Say that again because people miss it. For folks who are over 50, have served over 25 years, according to the Department of Corrections, that population of people are statistically less likely to commit a crime than if you randomly selected people from the population at large, which means that we are wasting a ton of money, millions and millions of dollars. We have so many problems, from schools to crime prevention to victim services to human services to out-of-control taxes. All of those things need to be addressed, and we should not be wasting money caging people who are not a threat to society as a population. Moreover, these folks are merely not costing us money. They are generating productive capacity and productive activity that actually is contributing to society. And so there is a net positive gain for them coming out, and there's a huge loss if they stay in. And we need folks to hear their stories, so then you who are watching out there can become advocates and encourage folks that are chair of the Judiciary Committee in the Senate and in the House to call a public hearing so we can get this kind of testimony on an official record, and it moves us one step closer to passing this legislation. So with no further ado, I've talked longer than I intended, but I want to introduce a woman who has been a champion before she was a secretary in her work as an advocate, and now is a champion inside the government as the Secretary of Pardons, a stranger to none, an advocate for all, Secretary Celeste Trusty.
Thank Thank you so much, Senator Street, and thank you for your unwavering allyship in all of these movements for basically your entire life. So happy Second Chance Month, everyone. April Second Chance Month, and we're so happy to be here to celebrate that. I'm Celeste Trustee, and I'm so honored to serve as the Secretary of the Board of Pardons of Pennsylvania. And as Senator Street mentioned, the Board of Pardons is often the only avenue for relief for people who are serving these excessive sentences of incarceration. We're also an avenue for relief for community members who experience the overwhelming barriers that our society heaps on people with a criminal conviction. Many people are seeking clemency after serving decades of a life without parole sentence, which in Pennsylvania is the mandatory sentence for both first and second-degree murder convictions. 45 people who were sentenced to life without parole or death by incarceration have been granted clemency by Governor Wolf. That's 45 people who are supposed to die in prison who are now home because of clemency, and they're contributing to our society. 3/4 of these people granted relief through clemency by Governor Wolf have been people of color. And in the last 5 years, 26 of those community members who were granted commutation from death by incarceration are from right here in Philadelphia. The Board of Pardons also recently announced its forthcoming modernized online clemency application system, which is going to provide transparency and agency in what is so often a very confusing and long process. There has been such an incredible level of dedication in expanding access to second chances in our Commonwealth over the past number of years, and I'm so grateful for the leaders like Senator Street, the elected officials, and the organizations who have been unwavering supporters and staunch allies for all of our friends, like the friends up here on the panel. So thank you all today for coming and recognizing and respecting the power of redemption in our society. So without further ado, Maria.
All right, I want to hear from these people at this table, each of whom is absolutely phenomenal. As Salim said earlier, Robert Salim Holbrook, Executive Director of the Abolitionist Law Center, he is doing amazing work. These people are also not unique in that we have thousands more people sentenced to life in Pennsylvania prisons who should be home doing this work as well. So I want to go around and begin by asking each panelist to introduce yourself, tell us who you are, tell us what you're up to today, and then also tell us the amount of time that you did in Pennsylvania prisons and for what. And in advance, I want to thank each of you from the bottom of my heart for sharing these deeply personal experiences. No one is asking me or any of you in the audience to come up here and talk about the worst thing that you ever did. And so I deeply, deeply appreciate your bravery in doing this. I know Bobby Harris told me it wasn't a thing, but I think it's a thing. So I'll start with Jerome Loach, who works here at Eastern State Penitentiary.
How everybody doing? Again, my name is Jerome Loach. I'm a supervisor here at Eastern State Historical Site. I'm supervisor of education and partnership. And my job primarily focuses on fellowship, creating this fellowship program in which targeting those individuals who are returning home. That's my primary focus. But let me step back. Before I got into all that, you know, I was a strong advocate while I was in prison. But let me back up again. Because before I was an advocate, I served 20 years of incarceration. And after my 20 years, I met a lot of these brothers that y'all see in this audience, Brother Riddick, Brother Joshua, Brother Suave, you know, so many brothers, we was all in the trenches. I wind up getting that second chance. During my second chance, I came home, I started my own business. I'm in the real estate, and I had 2 barbershops in which I began to hire those ex-offenders who was coming home, who also got the trade while they was in prison. But in the course of me doing that, I was rearrested. I was locked up, and I served 13 more years. But guess what? Those 13 more years was by way of police corruption. I was in the newspaper, TV, for my exoneration for police corruption. I'm in the National Exoneration Archives. Okay, I've been on the Clay Clan Show. I've been on the Wrongful Conviction podcast. And once I gained my freedom, I continue to indulge in my real estate business with my family, who gave me their support when I came home. However, I also, during my 13-year stint, met a beautiful man and woman, Sally and Laura, as well as Lauren, all three, during a program that was created at Chester Institution, and it was called Hidden Lives Illuminated. You can Google that, look it up on YouTube, you can find that. And I created a play called Justice, an animation film. And based on that, a relationship, in my opinion, formed. And when I got exonerated, I reached out to Eastern State, heard about all the good things they was doing, coming back into the prisons to work with ex-offenders or offenders ready to come home. And I wanted to join a team. And a lot of people say, well, why would you go back into prison? Like, that's crazy. You did like over 30-something years. But a lot of people don't understand the term called PTSD. And sometimes you can grow up in prison, and prison becomes your home, and society becomes the environment that's strange. Okay? You got to really understand this. It goes deep. And so for me, coming back into Eastern State Prison, it was like a therapy. It allowed me to continue to reach out to those soldiers that were still behind the walls, that I began to feel as if though they was my brothers. And so when I was tapped to create this fellowship program, and it's a beautiful program, one of its kind, okay? I wanted to reach back into the prisons to help those brothers. And in doing that, I'm reaching back out to the community, Sharif Street, Rab, and everybody else to give me their support. I need it because the men need it. And so without long ado, I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna shut up, because if y'all got any questions about this fellowship program, and it's a beautiful program, ask the questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. I'm open, I'm an open book. Y'all can ask me anything, okay?
Thank you so much. Bobby Harris, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself, what you're up to, how much time you did, and for what?
First, I must say, this brother's the flyest thing in the sky.
Right?
Listen, this brother's the flyest thing in the sky. I have to tell you that. I looked at him.
And can you speak right in the mic, so for our online audience? Thank you.
BB. My name is Bobby Harris. I'm named after my grandfather. My grandfather was a fighter. My grandfather's father was a fighter. We come from Burncorn, Alabama, where my family burned down that county because one of our relatives was murdered in the hands of an oppressor. I am Bobby Harris because my DNA expresses that I am somebody. I went to prison at the age of 15 and served 29 years in prison by choice, because I had an option. I had an option of doing something that was unorthodox to me, but I live with that choice. I represent every man and woman in the state penitentiary of Pennsylvania. I represent every man and woman in the county of every county in the state of Pennsylvania. What I am doing, I'm fighting for freedom, justice, and equality that brings about the liberation of our minds, our spirits, our souls, but more importantly, it brings about the liberation from those invisible shackles that strips us from our identity of men and women of the human family. My work is 27 hours a day. I prayed to the Lord to add 3 more hours because I understand that a lot of people work overtime to incarcerate. I understand that a lot of people work overtime to miseducate. I know that a lot of people work overtime to misdiagnose our health conditions. So I've been home for 4 years. November the 5th makes 5 years of me being home. But I'm still incarcerated. As Malcolm once said, the entire United States of America is a prison. We are in the prison of policies. We are in the prisons of miseducation. We are in prison because of the melanin within our skins strips us of being identified and respected in the best manner as upright individuals. So I am a representative of not possibilities, but as my brother, the general say for the ER Foundation, the new religion of the manifestation. I am the manifestation of what exists inside of the penitentiaries because I am taught and trained by individuals who have been sentenced to die in the state penitentiaries. I represent them because they teach and train me to do everything that I do today, tomorrow, but more importantly, whatever I done yesterday was so that I can do in a perfect future tense a little bit better. Fight the carcinal system. That's
Thank you. You grab that mic. Thank you. Mr. Lewis Reed, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself, how much time you did and for what?
Yeah, sure. So before I introduce myself, I just want to shout out my esteemed panelists and the community of Philadelphia for allowing me to be here. Specifically, Secretary Celeste, just pointing to personal privilege, and also Senator Street as well. My name is Lewis L. Reed. If my father was here, he would disapprove of missing the L from my middle initial. My name is Lewis L. Reed. I am the senior advisor for the executive leadership team to the Reform Alliance. Reform Alliance is co-founded by a native Philadelphian by the name of Meek Mill, also by another individual by the name of Jay-Z. And in effect, what we do is we focus on probation and parole reform throughout the United States of America. Pointing to also personal privilege, I served 14 years in federal prison. And so not only was I incarcerated for a decade and a half, but I was also incarcerated with native Philadelphians as well. And I got to hear firsthand how complex, how, for lack of a better term, how the state of Pennsylvania serves its citizens without compunction as it relates to disproportionate sentencing and severe incarceration. And so, in the interest of time, that's my introduction, and I'll pass it over to my brother, who I had the privilege of meeting just a few minutes ago.
Thank you.
My name is Suave Gonzalez, and I am the administrator, student coach at Community College for the I Am More program. And what we do is help brothers and sisters that's been impacted by the justice system continue their education at community college. We don't discriminate. We don't ask how much time you did, where you did your time. Like somebody said up here, all I got to do is look at you and I know you've been in. Because many of them come to us in their brown boots, straight from the penitentiary. And I was offered 3 jobs, offered. One of them was on NYU and Columbia University because one of my mentors worked there. But then community college called and I had a decision to make and I stuck with community college because of the program that they put me in charge of. For me, education played a big part. Like I said earlier, I went to prison with an IQ of 56. I didn't know how to read and write. Because if I did, I probably would have never served 31 years because I was offered 5 years to take a plea deal. And because I didn't know how to read that deal, I went to trial and got life without parole. So that's the power of education for me. And today, you know, I decided that when I came home that I wanted to be in media because I understand the power of media. I understand whoever tells the narrative control what's going out to the public. And the best way to do that for somebody that's coming home is to get yourself involved with podcasting. And a lot of people might say, well, I got a little podcast. Well, I got one of the top 5 in the country, created inside of Phoenix Penitentiary when I went back the second time. Why is that important? It is important because I am the only formerly juvenile lifer that ever won that IDA award. And when I went in there, I seen representatives from NBC, BBC, and all these other big time frontline. They was like, do you think you're gonna win? I was like, I already won. The fact that I'm on your mind, I already won. And when they said, and the winner is, I make sure they mention my name right, Suave Gonzalez, former juvenile lifer. That is important to me because people have this perception that you come home and you can't get into these institutions such as community college. Education is important for formerly incarcerated because when you have the certification or degree, at the minimum, you're going to get that interview. When I came home, one of my first jobs was working with a great mentor of mine, Aisha. You know, I worked at a different state rep's office. I took an internship there, and then I was cut loose. And then I got a job at the 25th district. So imagine that. Juvenile lifer coming home, and I'm working at the 25th district as a case manager, standing in roll call. I was like, how the heck I got here? I still ask myself, how the heck I got here? Education. They gave me the job because I had a degree from Villanova University. And that still wasn't enough for me. Because I asked myself the question, am I serving the purpose? Am I really helping my brothers and sisters working at the 25th Police District? The question was no, so I left. You know, the road to redemption for me haven't been easy. I have gotten jobs where my former supervisor didn't want to pay me because I supported a certain candidate. Didn't want to pay me. I'm not going to mention his name. I should, but I'm not, right? But this is the type of jobs that, you know, it's hard for us coming home to get a sustainable job that's going to sustain you and your family. But when you have them certifications and you have them degrees, you increase your chances of getting that job that's going to sustain yourself. And this is why education for me is important. It is important because I learned how to read and write. And that was the #1 mistake the DOC did. When they put me in the hole and they gave me a book to read. And they allowed me to learn how to read and write. That was the worst mistake. Trust me, they would tell you. Because when I did learn how to read and write, I was writing grievances. I was writing everything. I was writing everything. Every time I saw an injustice, I wrote it down. I wrote so much that I managed to publish 5 books from in prison. And the brothers would tell you, they would come by my cell, I'd be like this, writing down requests. I still got them requests and those manuscripts. I wrote books in toilet paper from the hole. And I was like, oh my God, if I knew it was going to be this sweet in solitary confinement, I would have been here a long time ago. That's what I said. So when I get the students that come on community college today and they want to sign up, I walk them through the whole process. I don't just tell them go register. They tell you. I walk them through the whole process and follow up and make sure that they get in. Because a lot of the time, these institutions have these programs, but they don't promote it. They don't promote to our community. And to be so close, 1700 Spring Garden, to our community, and our community had no connection to that institution, that's a no-no. So we changing that. When you go on campus today and you ask for the Iron Mall program, you want to see 20 to 25 people coming in daily. Daily. COVID restriction, we hold our orientation outside in the garden. There's no biggie about that. Same way we stood in the corner slinging them drugs and hanging out, we hold them orientations in the garden. And they be looking at me like, I'm like, I don't care if it's raining or not. If they show up, I'm there. Because if a person show up and knocking at your door, I want to get in, that means that they want it. That means that they want it. Because to me, education saved my life. Ignorance put me in jail, and education got me out.
Thank you. Robert Salim Holbrook, can you tell us how much time you did, what you're up to now?
Yeah, I did 27 years in prison. Went to prison for a drug-related homicide on my 16th birthday. I like to tell people what I'm doing now is really a continuation of what I was doing inside. I've always been an advocate. I even come from a family that, we were what you would call working poor, grew up not too far. It was a different neighborhood around here back then. I mean, this neighborhood has been gentrified, and I don't even really recognize it. But we grew up working poor on 19th and Green and then on 18th and Wallace. The things I remember coming up in my household is my pop was a member of the Wheels of Soul, but he was functionally illiterate, but he had pride. But he also had, addiction problems. He was really inspired, him and his generation, by the Black Panther Party. Mm-hmm. He always wanted to join the Black Panther Party, but he was embarrassed because he couldn't read, and he, didn't want to join it because, they had political education. So instead, him and his homeboys joined the Wheels of Soul because they had black leather jackets and they rode motorcycles. So I came up in the household with the father, the famous picture of Huey P. Newton sitting on the wicker chair with the shotgun and the spear. I remember being a little kid wondering what was that. And my mother was the complete opposite. She graduated at the top of her class from Temple University. Was sharp, intelligent, was what you would call a radical feminist, was a fierce anti-apartheid activist. And so that's the household I came up in, but the streets pulled me in. As hard as my parents tried to make a good household for me, I was attracted more to the values of the street, to the corner. I like to tell people that in practically all of our neighborhoods, many of us deviate from the values that we have in our homes and adopt inverted values on the street. Most of the people in my neighborhood didn't go to prison. It was just a small group of us, and I think that's how it is in the majority of poor black and brown neighborhoods. So some of the actions that I was involved in, unfortunately, led me to be involved in a drug-related homicide. When I went to prison, I was really fortunate. Suave talks about solitary confinement. I'm not going to say I was fortunate to go into solitary confinement. I did a total of 10 years in solitary confinement. Even when I left out of prison in 2017, I left from the Supermax, SCI Green, where basically it was controlled movement all day. But I was fortunate that I was groomed and mentored by political prisoners, because I saw in them what I saw in my household, in my coming up, and I gravitated toward that. And I like to tell people that I'm definitely a product of them. Russell Maroon Schultz, Joseph Jojo Bowens, Fred Muhammad Burton. They really helped inspire me. They really helped me enable to survive being 18, 19 years old in solitary confinement for years. Having conversations with them through an air vent in a prison cell with just boxers on, because the guards took all of our property out of our cells and decided to just leave us in our cells for a couple of days at SCI Huntington. That really helped, sustain my mentality, and it also helped sustain my humanity, because what I really remember them telling me is, don't let this break you. Don't let them deprive you of your dignity. And it empowered me. So I like to say what we do today, like, we're in the business of getting people out of prison, freeing people. Mm-hmm. We interact and engage the carceral state from the start, from arrest, through incarceration, all the way to release. We're abolitionists. We believe that. That's just not the name of our organization because it's catchy. Like, I don't believe prisons serve a public purpose. Prisons are something that has not been with us forever. And prisons are something that are not making our community safer. We also take on the cases that are unpopular, right? Because I was labeled incorrigible. I was labeled incorrigible on the streets and in prison, right? But someone took a chance on me. And so that's what we do. We take cases, you know, we took Russell Maroon Schultz's case, a case that people said that here is someone who will never see the light of day. And we brought him home to be able to die with his family. We just took on Mumia Abu Jamal's case. We're co-counsel on that case. So we're interested in taking those cases that are considered untouchable. We are very interested in taking on the cases of people who are labeled incorrigible, because I know from personal experiences that no human beings are incorrigible. No human beings are disposable. Someone once told me, if you take one step toward me, I'll take two towards you. And I think that's my motto in life, you know, whether it's our work, whether it's relationships. If you show me that you're willing to take one step, I'm the one that's going to take 2-3 steps towards you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Miss Naomi Blount-Wilson.
Yes. My name is Naomi Blount-Wilson. I served 37 years on the inside, and I've been home now for 2.5 years. 3 years, July 5th. And you know, the funny part about it is July 5th is my father's birthday. July 5th, I went to prison. July 5th, I was commuted. You know, I mean, really, that's something, so that might be a good number. Okay, so I'm a commutation specialist. I work for the Lieutenant Governor of Pennsylvania, John Fetterman. I am a program consultant working for Mr. Jeff Boone. I think I said his name wrong the first time. Jeff Boone, program consultant. We go to the different prisons throughout America. And you know, God is so good because I had never been on an airplane before, but we did some training before the pandemic in North Dakota, so I got to fly to North Dakota's prison and, you know, do some programming with the guys there. So right now we're doing it over Zoom with North Dakota, Ohio, and with SCI Chester right here in Pennsylvania. And my last job is I work with Professor Jenkins from Wesleyan College in New York, and I just talk to the students, and because they're, you know, going to be our future lawyers, you know, our change for tomorrow. And I talk to some of the children. I'll be going to Brooklyn, New York to talk to some children in Harlem on the 25th and 26th who had, you know, had parents that are on the inside, you know, just to kind of let them know that they're thought about and that they're loved. Of course, I was in prison for a conspiracy, being with someone that, you know, killed someone, and we both were sentenced to life. And what was the other question?
I think you answered them all, but I have another one for you. All of your lives are so many different threads pulled together, right? People, places, things. I'm curious, just if you can name, if this is even possible to answer, Miss Naomi, what were the 1 or 2 most important things on your personal road to redemption that helped you take this road?
Well, first, I'm a lover of people. I just love people. And you know what? It doesn't matter. Like I was listening to the brother talking about being raised. You know what I mean? No matter how much we get drug in the streets or how much we love the streets, you don't forget what your mother and father taught you. You just know, you just have those morals that you just don't forget. You know, I think I was one of the kindest drug addicts in the world. You know? I mean, because that's where I came from. You know, my parents were givers of themselves, and you know, and it does feel good to do something good for someone else. So, you know, it just wasn't hard for me to, you know, have that forgiveness, you know, within myself for those that I hurt, you know, just by being an addict. You know what I mean? People that loved me, you know, I hurt them because I was killing myself. But of course, I always consider myself just being a pilgrim. I'm just passing through. So, and, a lot of people just don't see it that way. My son says sometimes that I'm morbid. I'm not morbid. It's just, that's the way that it is. I'm passing through. This ain't going to be forever. You know what I mean? So I just want to put, forth my best that I can do while I'm here. Just, perhaps where my great-grandson may be able to say, oh, that was my grandma, my great-grandmom that did that. You know what I mean? When I'm dead and gone. But, the road to redemption, forgiveness, I'm just so happy that there is such a word as forgiveness, that people can forgive and give people that second chance. And I don't think that that April should be Second Chance Month. I think that all year long should be Second Chance Month.
Thank you so much, Miss Naomi. Mr. Lewis L. Reed, what were the one or two most important things on your personal road to redemption?
Yeah, I think that the larger question for me is, I was just sitting here actually looking at this bottle of water. And by the way, that this brother happens to be the entrepreneur of. And I was thinking about how in the United States of America, we are very careful about how we discard recyclables. You want to make sure your plastics go in the appropriate container. You want to make sure your compost goes in the appropriate container. And if not, you will have the green team at your door executing a search warrant for you to drag you off somewhere. But when it comes to human potential, we don't exercise the same level of delicate care. And for me, it's ironic that we're having this conversation today, 2 days after Christians celebrate the Passover, Easter, and in effect, that is about redemption. I think about a man who was on the Jericho Road, and when that man was on the Jericho Road, there were some do-gooders who saw him. That one do-gooder saw him on the side of a road, and he had been half beaten, and he walked over him. And then there was a politician who came along, and he saw him. He actually crossed the street. And then there was another person who came along who was least likely, and who was marginalized himself. And that person happened to be called a Good Samaritan. And that person got off of his high horse, and he got down, and he was touched by the feelings of the infirmity of the individual who was actually hurting. He listened to what the condition was. And when this brother talked about PTSD, as a licensed clinician, I've developed a newer notion called the new PTSD, which is called prison traumatic stress disorder. These are the vicarious traumas that we actually deal with before we even see the inside of a prison cell. How many funerals have we gone to in our community? How many people do we know who have been discarded, left behind, and rejected from society before we even ourselves have been discarded, left behind, and rejected by society? And so when I think about what a road to redemption has been for me, in effect, it accumulates into one of several things. Number one, spirituality. When I was incarcerated, it was in my darkest moment that the word of God shined the brightest in my life, first and foremost. Second of all, I got me a little bit of an education. Not only did I matriculate through the School of Hard Knocks through the Federal Bureau of Prisons, but I was fortunate enough to not just earn one bachelor's degree, not just earn another bachelor's degree, but also to earn a master's degree in clinical counseling. That was not subsidized by the Federal Bureau of Prisons, though. That education was subsidized by my family and friend and the generosity of other people. And the third thing is that, quite frankly, like everybody else on this panel, I had a righteous indignation that was lit in my spirit. I saw too many black, brown, and poor white people who were disproportionately impacted by our criminal justice system, and I wanted to do something about it. And so what I did was, when I got home approximately 6 years ago, I was determined to change the system. I was determined to change the Philadelphia equivalent of Connecticut, the Philadelphia equivalent of New York, all four corners of this country and everywhere in between. I was determined to change the conditions of not only incarceration for people who were on the inside, but also for the more than 5 million people who are currently on probation in the United States of America. So if there's three tiers of 3 levels of redemption that I had to actually journey through in order to arrive to where I am today, it would have been those 3.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Mr. Bobby Harris, I want to ask, in your personal path, did your redemption experience happen in spite of prison, because of prison, somewhere in between? How do you see that?
That's a good question. And the answer is even better.
I knew it would be.
For me, I looked at redemption blindly. I started to look at the water that was being poured into me while I was in prison by individuals that was like, Bobby, you are allowing them. This is by Jojo Bolden, who Salim had just mentioned. We're sitting in, the Mohawk. And at this time, I think he had 11 years in solitary confinement. He said, you're letting everybody beat you by performing as a deficient individual. And it didn't resonate with me until I started to make a transition throughout my years of incarceration. And I started to look at, redemption. Before there can be the redemption, I actually needed to learn how to go through a process of remorse and understanding the harm that I have committed, understanding the harm that other people have committed. And once I learned to understand remorse, it allowed me to make that transformation or restructure myself to think a little bit deeper and more constructively, but more constructively as a student to be taught. So once I allowed myself to be taught by individuals in the penitentiary who still resides in prison, I understand that my birth came about when I understood that my redemption, my redemption was my death, and my death was my rebirth as a member of humanity. I stopped thinking about, I don't know an individual like you. I know you. All I have to do is ask a question to learn as a studious individual. That created a level of love to understand, not just the emotional aspect. And when I started to understand you, I understood me. When I understood me, I projected myself as a father and a brother to everybody in the human family. And when I did that, I learned how to become a fighter. I can't remove myself from the statement of a fighter simply because in birth we fight in order to become physical born beings through our mother's womb. Going through that stage, I said my redemption comes without time out. My redemption comes with understanding that I have become that metal. And the metal I'm talking about is we're looking at salvage material that a lot of people throw away. I don't want to throw another black man away. I don't want to throw another black woman away. So I stay studious to learn what I don't know. And I was taught that by individuals in the penitentiary. And I'm even going to share, I'm very personal. I'm very personal and I speak my mind. Even recently, I went through a very confusing moment in life with a challenge that shows my growth as well as that shows my ability to be studious, to respect the unknown and the known. I'm an advocate for dignity and power now. That's not a question, it's a statement. I'm the lead organizer for dignity and power now that affects black and brown and poor white people. As that student and as that leader that they saw, who was taught by individuals in prison, my redemption is to execute a will, but on like my brother just said, on Good Friday. I'm actually with an approved pass. I'm going to state that I did have an approved pass to go to a church and speak about Jesus' last word, I thirst. And I went with Brother Asadi, Joshua, and I received inside of Target shopping for groceries for him because he's a returning citizen. I received an anonymous phone call that said, Bobby, but they didn't say my name. It was a threat. A person threatened me because I choose to fight for the criminal justice system against the probation bill. I'm a respecter of persons, principles, ideas, thoughts, and expressed thoughts, inferred and not inferred. But I got a call that said, I'm going to tell you to stay out of that SB 913 nonsense. And that's all I effing have to say, and that is that. I prayed on it. And I say this and share this to say that, like Steve Harvey said, God is not done with me yet. So I prayed because I didn't want to think destructively. I didn't want to think negatively. I didn't want to think in responding to someone that misunderstood or misunderstand that my life as Bobby Harris is to be sacrificed for freedom, justice, and equality because I represent the men and women in the penitentiary. So I consulted with the penitentiary, and the penitentiary said, Bobby, what are you doing? You was born to do what you're doing. We entrusted you to do what you're doing. So my redemption comes from the remembrance that someone helped me to understand remorse while I was in prison. Someone inside of the prison helped me understand who I am without a 401 plan. I am a liberator of the oppressed, and that helps me to understand redemption is continuance and without shackles.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Suave Gonzalez, I want to ask you, when did you feel like you had learned whatever lesson you needed to learn to be ready to come home? Was that right away? Was it years? When did you feel that?
Like I said earlier, a day after I got arrested. Period. But for me, it happened in 1993 when I met a beautiful lady named Miranda Hauser, a journalist. She came into the prison, and she was at a graduation. I snuck in because I wanted to sell weed to the guy that was graduating. So I had a whole pocket full of weed in Grattisville. She came in, and I sat in the front row, and she started talking, and I just felt like she was talking to me. And I threw my weed away. I mean, she was that good. And then I was like, shh, man. Oh, man, I'm going to get my money. But it happened that moment when she said, she looked at me and she was like, you could be the voice for the voiceless. At that moment, I was like, what that means? I'm down here to sell some weed, lady. That's what I told her. And I just threw a whole pocket full of weed just to come down here and listen to you. But that was the moment for me. And she stayed in touch with me throughout my whole incarceration. She started sending me books. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I can't even read none of the books she was sending. And in one of them boxes, it was one of her books that she wrote. And I paid this guy a pack of cigarettes. I used to give him one cigarette. You got to read a chapter for me, right? And until I memorized the book. Mm-hmm. And that was my foundation to learning how to read. I memorized that book page by page. Mm-hmm. And I was like, man, I got to do better. I was in solitary confinement for fighting the guard, coming out the chapel. It's always a chapel. Coming out the chapel in prison. And they put me in the hole. I get letters from my mother, I couldn't even read them. Had to pay somebody else. So another individual was like, I'm not going to write your letters, you know, but I'm going to show you how to write. So every day he give me 10 words, and I mastered that. Came out of solitary confinement. I got my GED. And I was just walking one day, and I seen this class all full of white guys. And I was like, what the heck is going on here? A client meeting? You know, so they was like, no, this is college. You know, you're not ready for this. And I was like, all right, cool. I went and signed up. Villanova. And my first grade, I remember, was a D+. But I thought it was an A because it was something I fought for. I wrote that paper. I ain't even cheated. And the professor was like, well, you know, you got to do better. I said, well, okay, tutor me. So every week he used to stay after class and tutor me. I graduated from Villanova with a 3.5. With a 3.5. And I was like, that's not enough. I'm going to be that voice for the voiceless. So even in prison, you know, again, you know, I keep mentioning her name, but it's like she's been a part of my transformation from prison all the way to my release. It's Miss Aisha. She used to call, and we used to call this radio show that she's hooked her up with, and I used to talk over the radio on the Spanish station. And I was like, then I was feeling myself. I like that. And I said, when I go home, that's what I want to do. You know, so I started reading everything about podcasting and learning it and how you create it and how you could live off of it. And what I did that because in prison, people are separated from the media. The media cannot get into the prison and talk to the guy freely. So I'm going to create a platform where we, right, could put a statement out every time the media put a negative statement about the brothers and sisters. Because every time some dumb stuff happened out here, the brothers in the prison pay the price. Yep. They pay the price. Yep. So my transformation came when I learned how to read and write. When I was able to tell my brothers, give me a book, I need a book to read. Give me another book. Give me another book. As a matter of fact, I ran out of book, I'm gonna write my own book. And I used to have, you know, Minister Giles, Joseph, I used to have them read my stuff. Is this good? You better tell me it's good. They'd be like, nah, it's not that good yet, you know. But they were my test readers. Mm-hmm. That was my test, and people used to laugh like, what you getting a degree for? You're never going home. Mm-hmm. I was like, okay, cool. I just want to be ready on day one.
Yeah.
I just want to be ready.
Because
I used to see people coming in and out. And the first thing they say, well, you know, it's hard out there. I'm a parole agent. You know, I work with parole agents today. Mm-hmm. Hand on, you know, with them. Yeah. And I always tell people, the only difference between you and me is that I took 16 years to go to Villanova part-time to get a degree, and you decided to go play basketball. You know, it's nothing special about Swab going out and getting a job. It's nothing special. It's just that I believe so much in education that why not work in it? Why not help those that's coming home and let them see the picture? Because when you are educated, your chances of going back to prison are very slim.
Yep. Thank you, Swab.
Very slim.
Thank you. You mentioned that people inside pay the price when something happens out here, and if we're being honest, there's a lot happening out here. There's a lot happening all over the state. And, you know, all I'm hearing about on the media is record number of homicides, crime rate going up. And when I'm in Harrisburg, you know, that is giving pause to a lot of people who are interested in criminal justice reform, and it's also giving a lot of ammunition to people who don't want reform at all. It seems to me like it's counterintuitive for a lot of people to understand why letting the folks that we're talking about, older people, sick people, people doing life out of prison could actually help with violence. But each one of you shows why it would help. And each of you is directly, indirectly involved in community building, which is peace building. Jerome Loach, specifically, you're involved in, I think, multiple anti-violence initiatives. Can you talk a little bit about that work briefly and how you are seeing that impact the community?
Sure. basically coming here to Eastern State Prison Historical Site, it took me out of my element. You know, if you understand what I'm saying. You know, I come from the streets. That was my life. You know, I practically grew up in the streets. But coming into this type of environment, it removes you from the environment in which you're comfortable with. You know, and it gives you a whole different experience. You know, something that you say, Dad, this is right here in my neighborhood, and I didn't realize it. You know, I grew up 12th and Poplar, so, you know, and this was a part of the Moroccos, for those who didn't know. Yeah. You know, you say, yes, you know that, huh? You know, and so, you know, this being here, you know, gives me the opportunity to try and help those men and women that's coming home, to give them a different environment, a different look at how they can do something positive. So, what Eastern State Prison is doing, and I love it, and that's why I'm glad I'm a part of it. You have one of my colleagues, Liz, and you have our CEO, President Sally here. They doing a wonderful job with the Masonry Academy that's helping those individuals that are returning home, as well as those individuals who are in society that needs jobs, training, and things of that nature. And they bring them on in this new environment, taking them out of the environment from which they are comfortable in and bringing them in here, helping to give them living wages, starting at $15 an hour. You ain't gonna find that. You know what I mean? At too many places here, okay? But they giving these men and women living wages. And then we have a program called the Fellowship Program, okay? The Fellowship Program is my baby. Now, that's a little bit aggressive because I'm thinking out of the box, and I'm not thinking like everybody here. I'm thinking like my brothers and sisters who are incarcerated. What do they need? Okay? Not what y'all need. What do they need? Because understand this here. And you may say, what do you mean by that? Not what y'all need. What do they need? Because if they're successful, guess what? Y'all become successful. You understand that? Y'all become successful. How? Behind the mere simple fact that if they're successful, they pay taxes, crime rate goes down, community property and everything goes up. This is how that investment goes back in to Brother Sharif Street bill that he's trying to get passed. We need to support that bill. We need to be able to get those men and women, you know what I mean, on board and reallocate those funds that are being wasted. Because crime ain't going down, crime is still the same. We may have more focus on it because it's all in the news. But it ain't doing nothing the same. 100 homicides today, 100 homicides yesterday. How can we change that? You can change it by changing the gun laws, but they don't want to do that. So if they don't do that, then we got to come up with more inventive ideas, such as what the Brother Sharif Street is trying to do. And so with the fellowship program, my design is to tap into those men and women who are about to come home. Not when they home, but about to come home. 3 months before they're about to come home. And give them a trade. Have them come and work here, out of their element, into a different element. Okay? Working living wages, 15 hours, straight out of prison. Okay, that's rare. And it's not lip talk. I'm not going to be a part of nothing that has anything to do with lip talking. I want action. I'm that individual that did 11 years in isolation in the hole. I'm that individual that these brothers is talking about, Russell Maroon Schultz. I gave him that name, Maroon. Brothers don't know that. When I look at my brother Sharif right here, the general, when I look at my brother Joshua over here, these brothers was kids when they came through. Yes, I can't tell a lie now. You know what I mean? Because they're going to make me, stand up and say, no, brother, I remember you. That ain't you. That wasn't you. No, I was that guy that because of my looks, like this brother just said to me earlier, brother, you're sharp. But that caused me a lot of problems when I was growing up. Because I got curly hair. People say, you got a curly hair. Nah, that's me natural. Yes. I had to fight, and I had to gain what was called respect. And I got that from those men that Brother Sharif is trying to help get out. Maroon, JoJo, Winston, Ethiop Blue, all these beautiful brothers that's locked up that wants to make a change. Even Major Tillery. Yes. These brothers know me personally and Brother Mumia. I don't like to talk in these contexts because then y'all start knowing too much about me. I don't like that. Yeah, I got a little secret about me. But because I was fighting, eventually trying to do the right thing, I was locked up. 13 years. But I got exonerated. And I'm still fighting today for justice. But even though I'm fighting today for justice for the state to right their wrong, I'm still fighting for my brothers and sisters. Look at that oxymoron. I'm not going to give up. And it doesn't matter if you're white, black, Puerto Rican, or whatever. I'm a soldier. At the end of the day, I was changed because I'm finished right here. I was changed because when I did those 20 years, okay, I was what you would call a big a-hole. The administration, that's how they viewed me. A big a-hole. Leave him alone. And it wasn't until I was placed on what was called Harrisburg lockdown. Some of these young brothers may not have heard of that. Yeah. That's the real, not no new stuff that you may get into with this SNU unit and all that. No, I was on the real one, the Harrisburg lockdown. I was the bad of the bad, okay? But it was those brothers that was locked down, that was next door to me, that the administration hated, that they couldn't stand their guts. It was them that raised me up and made me change my way and gave me a book called Queen Mother Moore. Read that book. Queen Mother Moore, lady out in New York. I read that book and I cried in my cell because I knew the harm that I did to my community. And that made me want to change and make a better way for those brothers and sisters that was trying to come through. Because I knew that I had street credibility, and you can bet your dollar on that. I had street credibility in prison as well. So my voice carried. I started the Pan-African movement in prison. That was me. And I remember my brother Salim here. He don't remember me. I remember he was a kid. I'm a lot older than I look.
Thank you, Mr. Loach. You mentioned reinvestment, reallocation of this. We know the cost of incarceration is absolutely massive and insane. Like we said before, the DOC budget every single year is $2.6 billion, and it costs more to incarcerate somebody for 1 year in Pennsylvania than the average Pennsylvanian's yearly income. So we're gonna go rapid fire real quick tell me the top 1 or 2 things that you would want to see that money reinvested in with the goal of healthy communities, violence prevention, peace building. We're going to start with Miss Naomi. Top 1 or 2 things, real quick.
Well, what I want to see, I want to see this bill passed. I really do. I want to see this bill passed. And believe me when I tell you that I was sitting over here looking at his watch because I said I have to go to work.
We're about to wrap up. This is the last
Right,
round.
and so when you ask that question, I'm looking at him like, what did she say? And here he goes talking about, yeah, go ahead, answer the question. I'm like, what was the question?
You can pass it to Salim if you want.
Yeah, I was saying, what was the question?
Yeah, so we have so much money spent on corrections. If you're thinking about violence prevention, peace building, community building, what's the top thing that
Okay.
you would want to see that money
And
reinvested in?
that is what I want to see. I want to see people support. I do. I want to see, because I can remember a bill a while ago, and they said it had to be done over or something like that. I was on the inside then. So I'm just saying, let's do whatever it takes to help this man pass this bill so our brothers and sisters can come home.
Thank you, Miss Naomi. Salim, what would you want to see that money reinvested in?
I think I would like to see that money go back to community organizations and advocates in the community who are working with a lot of at-risk youth. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of activists within Philadelphia and organizations doing this work. I could think of NOMO, I could think of Grown. Listen, if I forget to mention one of the plethora of groups that are doing it, even Eric Riddick's organization, there's a lot of people who are credible messengers who could use resources to go into our communities and start talking to these young bulls that are at risk, I was there, I know they're good kids, but they're caught up in a cycle, and they're caught up in a culture and a system of values that are inverted. And you need someone to come, and like was done to me, is to bring us right side up, right? And so I would like to see a lot of resources go into that. And I would like to also see us advocating more for that. The same way we advocate for these bills, the same way we advocate for decarceration, we need to be advocating for these community organizations that are doing this work, for them to have these resources, whether it's from city council or whether it's from the state. So, that's what I would like to see, a massive influx. We're always repairing other countries that this country bombs, right? They come in with a Marshall Plan, or a reconstruction plan. We need a plan for our communities, for our inner cities, that can revitalize them and move those resources to the organizations that are actually doing the work on the ground.
Yep, thank you so much. Suave, number 1 place you'd want to see that money go for violence prevention?
Education and community groups that are directly working with groups such as the Real Rap Group in Chester, and give them a platform so them brothers like Matthew Garcia could come home to his family. Because most of the time they give money to these organizations that they're friendly with, but the real people that's doing the work don't get no funding. So I would like to see the underdog get funding. Them groups that are working directly with them brothers and sisters in the prison get funding, so them brothers could have a chance to come home, because they're doing wonderful work. I just come from Chester.
Thank you.
They're doing wonderful work up there.
Thank you. Mr. Reed, top place you'd want to see that money go?
Yeah, those closest to the problem are often closest to the solution, but furthest from resources and power.
Yep.
Let me say that one more time for the people in the back. Those closest to the problem are often closest to the solution, but furthest from resources and power. One of the things that we did in conjunction with Senator Street not too long ago, we were at a social event, and he talked about how the city of Philadelphia was hurting. And so Reform Alliance, we invested $500,000. Relatively recently, we invested $500,000 into community-based organizations that was doing the work in the city of Philadelphia. And also, breaking news. Allow me to interrupt our regularly scheduled program to give you this breaking news announcement. At the end of the month, we are going to be announcing another national grant. As a result, and as an inspiration of the conversation that we had with Senator Street and other invested stakeholders here in the city of Philadelphia as well. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I'll say is this. Look, the Department of Corrections is the only institution, I want you to hear me close, the Department of Corrections is the only institution in all of government that gets rewarded for failure. Think about it. If you go to prison today and you are released tomorrow, the Department of Corrections gets more money in its annual budget next year as a forecast because they think that there's going to be more people in its institutions. And so we need to reframe that model, and we need to divest that money, and we need to reinvest it back in other institutions, mainly those who are in the community that are actually doing the work for people who are hurting.
Thank you so much. Mr. Harris, real quick, top place you'd put that money if we could reinvest it right now?
I agree with everyone on the panel on what they said, and I would add this other component. And I particularly, pray the Senate, the streets, they could take it up there to the Senate. Y'all will never be successful in allowing the grassroots organizations to be effective unless y'all utilize that money, not to reinvest, because black people have never been invested in the first place. So when we put onto that, that's faulty knowledge. But to invest in these grassroots organizations implementing the work, to be taught how to properly do their taxes, to be taught how to properly run a nonprofit, to be taught how to become a self-savior of the community, not by a Harrisburg-approved training facility or facilitator, but by directly impacted individuals that have firsthand knowledge. Take away the we never been invested in, not in America.
Join me in thanking our fantastic panel today. Thank you so much for coming.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, everybody.
I'm sorry. I know we have to wrap. I think that it's imperative to say. 1 second. When we talk about redemption, in the entire 14 years that I was incarcerated and all the years that these people have been incarcerated here, we have never seen felons. We have never seen convicts. We've seen people who have been incarcerated. And so if we are going to literally change the narrative, and if we're going to advance the bill, the very smart bill that Senator Street has in the Assembly, we need to humanize the experiences of people who have been incarcerated.
Absolutely.
People who have been incarcerated.
Thank you for being here, everybody. Thank you so much.